Good evening, Coach Avia. Good evening.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening from wherever you are joining us from. Please kindly confirm if you can see my screen. Please kindly confirm if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see.
Yes, I can.
Thank you very much.
Confirm.
I'm trying to put it on. All right, my name is Waliu Adegoke, and I'll be taking us through today's section on Introduction to Confined Space Entry. Introduction to Confined Space Entry, which is one of the major activities that has led to issues of death and lost time injury in so many organizations. This training is being freely delivered. This introductory training is freely delivered by Codal Safety Consult. We are into various health and safety training and management systems, management trainings, health and safety training. We help in creating site inspection and audits. We also help in manpower supply and HSC project support for organizations. So you might need to want to get more information about us. You can visit our website www.codalgroup.com. But let's go to the training of today properly. Talking about confined space, please, our co-admins will help us to admit people in, so that I can focus on the session. Why are we talking about confined space? Confined space entry in the USA, we know definitely in this part of the world, we have low and insufficient data to understand the effect of various hazards and various high-risk activities in our society. And it has prompted us to not only look within our scope as a nation, but also look at the effects of some activities in other countries. There is what we call in HSC management system, there is what we call benchmarking. There is what we call benchmarking your indicators or your progress with a similar entity, that you can use it to know how far you are doing and what you should put in place. And it's always good to benchmark with those that are ahead of you, so that you can have an insight into how you can improve and progress. It's just like more of what we call gap analysis. Gap analysis is a particular scope on its own, but what we are trying to say here is that benchmarking or creating gap analysis between an entity and another entity, especially an entity that is higher than you, in order to know your areas of improvement. Areas of improvement are very important for in order to create a better dimension and to see areas that we can actually do better. According to our ISO standard, when we talk about opportunities for improvement, we talk about clause 10. It's always important that all these are in place. So, and part of that is looking at the issue of confined space. The USA have it that one of the leading cause of fatality, occupational fatalities in the USA, is confined space. There are a lot of issues that surrounds confined space. Apart from the direct effect of confined space activity alone, the nature of a confined space gives rise to other areas of health and safety, such as, for example, we can be talking about in advanced confined space entry activity, we're talking about issue of log out, tag out. because of the kind of hazards that are present inside the confined space, especially in issues of process units. Let's say, for example, a maintenance activity is being carried out in a process line, and or in a process line, and that process line involve supply of certain chemicals at a particular temperature, and they are carrying out confined space activity inside this kind of investing. Please let us stay muted. Anyone that is not muted will be sent out of the section so that we'll be able to focus on the class and avoid distraction. So in such case, aside from talking about the natural nature of confined space, in addition to the high risk activity and other things that is happening, it makes us to talk about some other areas, which if you go through the full course of confined space, they touch these salient areas such as issues of logout, tagout. In case you are carrying out a confined space activity in the process line, where some other hazards will be involved. So I've said there was this particular story that happened. I think most of us might have heard of it, and if not, some of us might have heard of it, of some technicians carrying out maintenance work. Issues of confined space and logout, tagout, the hazard and the risk and the accident that occurs most times during maintenance. That is why maintenance activity should be a permit to a permit to work required activity. So for that particular, it was like the operation. This what was it called? They call it CFA pump for mixing operation. I do not have the clear picture, but this is the story, and this is how it went briefly. They were carrying out a maintenance activity. I think there were two inside that particular mobile mixer. And while they were carrying out that maintenance work, that mobile mixer is already a confined space work because there's a limitation, there is limited access and limited space. We will still go to the full definition of what confined space activity really means. So this particular day, this particular unhappy day, they were doing their maintenance work and they had a break, and they had to go out. I think there were two, or I think there were three. They had to go out for break, and unfortunately, one of them came in earlier. One of them came in earlier and just went inside. It's a confined space, but so at the same time there was failure in the area of logout, tagout. So one of them came in earlier to continue doing the maintenance work. So the remaining two coming in later when they got there, they were like, before we start operation, let us even test what we've done so far. Unknown to them that someone was inside, and they started the operation. The rest is history. You know what will happen. It has already created issue of fatality already to the person who was inside. Why am I doing this introduction? Though this training is on confined space, but we also need to have a higher dimension of additional risk based on the nature of confined space, additional risks that can be introduced to the activity. That is why if you're talking about health and safety, there is no isolation of knowledge because we deal with so many areas simultaneously. Like I said, confined space is a leading cause of occasional fatalities in USA. That kind of accident will be recorded under confined space and will also be recorded under logout, failure to apply logout, tagout. So confined space is very, very important, and we need to understand how it can be very dangerous. If you look at the picture in this first slide, you will see that kind of a silo. You see it in so many factories, so many process companies, industries where they carry out production of one chemical or one process activity or the other. So it let us to know that this can be. Let us mute. Sir, we won't want you to have your camera on. Please let us stop the video so that we can maintain our bandwidth and not distract the class. So let us talk about statistics. Statistics says that standard covers 240,000 workplaces and 12.2 million workers. This is a statistics in the workplace that talks about creating standard for confined space activity, and it covers a total of 12.2 million workers, which tells you how confined space activity is one of the major activities that occur in the workplace, especially in the construction industry and the manufacturing industry, even in the oil and gas industries too. So workers make 4.5 million entries on confined space incident on a yearly basis. Standard may present 85% of fatalities and nearly 11,000 injuries. These are statistics for us to know the extent of confined space and why we need to take very important look at it. Confined space activity on its own most times requires a permit to work. It most times requires a permit to work because of the nature of the job. It's a high-risk job that requires complete attention. Why do we call something a confined space? Or what is the criteria for you to say this activity or this job is a confined space activity? Number one is limited means of egress and regress. That is limited means of entry. Limited means of entry. There is no free entry and free exit. And even when you want to enter, you want to exit, it is always through a particular way because of how the entity that you're trying to carry out confined space activity is, because of the nature of how it is and how you can modify it, but try to use the current situation to get access to it and to also get out. So when you have limited egress and regress, it automatically tells you something. Who can tell me what it automatically tells you? When you have a particular place or a particular space that there is limited egress and there's limited exit, it talks about something very important. It should draw our attention to something that can create higher risk. Who can tell us what that is? It tells us about something that can create higher risk. Who can try? When you have limited means of entry or exit from a particular place, it creates another problem, another challenge. Who can try and tell us what that might be? In the comment section, who can try and drop it in the comment section of what it might be, the extra hazard that it can create. Who can try? Nobody? 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 Who can try? I need someone to try. Okay, I can see comments now. Comments are limited oxygen, less flow. Okay, correct. Now, my focus is the fact that there's limited entry and exit. There is a particular procedure that we'll talk about that has to do with entry and exit. There's a particular, all these are what defines confined space. But when it comes to entry and exit, there is something, entry and exit, that is actually, thank you, limited chance for emergency. You are all correct. You are all correct when it comes to confined space entry. But when it comes to the entry and exit, there are some other factors to consider for suffocation, toxic atmosphere, limited flow of air. Limited flow of air will lead to suffocation, limited oxygen. But now what we're talking about, the entry and the exit. The entry and the exit, it gives limitation to for you to carry out emergency procedure. That tells you that, yes, engulfing entrance, also very correct. When the entrance is very limited, it means that there's a size of person that can actually go in. And if there's an emergency, the state of the person, the size of the person will determine how fast or what you need to put in place. Imagine putting someone inside this kind of silo and the person is weighing 120 kg. It means that the emergency procedure should involve what will take that person of that weight out. So it makes you to take extra cognizance look of the emergency procedure. So because of the natural, you are all correct here. I love this comment. Suffocation, accumulation of poisonous substances, it makes it difficult to exit. Yeah, thank you. Poor illumination. Yeah, limited entry and exit. Okay, yes. Additive control limited. limit of entry at an interval. Yes, there should be limited entry. So the reason why I ask this question is for us to see how each definition give rise to other hazards that we need to look out for. That's why when I give my training, I make sure that apart from the main focus, we look at the other branches, the other effects that could have, some other factors that could affect the process we're talking about, or the process that will affect other factors. It's a two-way thing for us to have a broader knowledge. Everything is like a web. It attaches to each other. So definition one talks about limited means of egress, which are like we all agreed now, that egress will make it difficult for someone to exit in case of emergency, or for someone to be rescued because of the nature. So that will now tell us that, okay, how do we cater for emergency procedure? It automatically tells you that for a confined activity, you should automatically be taking of your emergency procedure. Automatic, and it should be available there, and not wait till there's an accident before you address it. Can be bodily entered. It's only one person that can enter at a time. And that person, you need to know the size of that person based on the size of the diameter of the entrance that is available. Like what our engineer Tukulawa said, engulfing entrance. It's very tight. It will give limitation to the space that someone wants to enter. So it can be bodily entered, only one person at a time. The next one says, not designed for continuous occupancy. Because of so many reasons, it's not something that requires continuous occupancy. And why is it so? We can give now, from what we have mentioned in the examples that we gave, which is so correct, I want us to come with this third one now. Most of the answers we gave is now reflecting on this now. What makes that confined space not to be a space for continuous occupancy? Should I come again? What are those characteristics that makes that confined space not to be a space for continuous occupancy? Okay, poor lighting, thank you, very correct. Ventilation, very correct.
Insufficient air.
Insufficient air, very correct. Limited, not convenient for the person entering. Dangerous gas, lack of oxygen, limited space, lower level of oxygen, restricted movement. Thank you. This will make the space, toxic gases and vapors can be present. Yes, depending on what that, for example, the vessel or the container is being used for. So the gas or whatever is there will tell you that this space is not a good space for people to. So there will be, so in your risk assessment, in your job as an analysis, you will now be identifying what is the chemical that is here, what is present here, what are those things that can lead to hazard, that can lead to injury. How can this person that is entering this space to enter, that's helping the, what are these things that we can put in place? What are those things that this person that is entering this space, what are those things that can lead to hazard, injury, and what can we put in place to protect this person? You now start looking at your hierarchy of controls. You're talking about administrative procedures. Okay, make sure that this person is well trained so that when he gets there, he spend limited time, is highly competent, spend limited time and get out. Or there will be breaks, maybe 30 minutes, or maybe 10 minutes, you go out, the second person comes in, 30 minutes, he goes out, the second person comes in, maybe a rotational activity. Ventilation, ensuring that you trap out, you introduce sort of ventilation into the system. Then PPE, okay, this toxic gas, this person need maybe a very good respiratory system, a respiratory apparatus that will cater and not allow that toxic substance to get in. Yeah, someone also said it's not convenient for ergonomic purpose. Yes, there's no convenience too based on ergonomics, and these are the reasons that makes that defines it as what? As confined space. Please let us stop our video. Please let's continue. Our admins should please help us to admit those that are trying to come in, please. Now, definition of permit required confined space. Number one, contains or has potential to contain a hazardous atmosphere. It contains a hazardous atmosphere or has potential to contain a hazardous atmosphere. Now, I want this class to be as interactive as possible. We are already 66 on the call. I want this class to be as interactive as possible, and I'm already feeling the energy. We all know that. Okay, we all know how an hazardous space can contain. Sorry, how a space can contain hazardous substance. But who can give me an example of how an operation in a confined space, which initially does not have an hazardous atmosphere, can later have an hazardous atmosphere while operating? Should I come again? Can you give us an example of an activity or how or why a confined space which does not have an hazardous atmosphere can now have an hazardous atmosphere during operation? Who can give me an example? We already have a comment here. Welding, thank you, painting. So it means that the nature of job will also add to the hazards, and that should come up in your job hazard analysis. Grinding, hot work, painting, blasting, grinding. Thank you all. These are good feedback. These are responses. So it tells you that it's not only the confined, maybe you want to enter a confined space, you are not only looking at what the confined space is already having. No, you also need to look at the activity that you are trying to carry out in the confined space. We now tell you the extra controls that you need to put in place. Let us continue. Blasting, grinding, these are all correct. Please, our admins, help us to admit people in there. They are coming in numbers. Contains the potential for engulfment. It contains the potential for engulfment. The entrance, like what engineer said, is engulfing. It can make maybe the process, what the confined space is initially used for. There's possibility for engulfment. Someone said improper shutdown. Very correct. Imagine someone working in a confined space and there's an emergency shutdown. Maybe there's a fire somewhere else. You can see now, you can see where we need to why we need to talk about confined space. An activity might be happening inside the confined space and there's an emergency somewhere. You know that those that are doing confined space will not attend to emergency. They also need to attend to emergency. So imagine a company, an organization. Please let us switch off our cameras. Imagine an organization that knows that they used to carry out confined space. And you are doing you are carrying out your drill, your emergency drill for fire accidents. And you know that part of the activity involves confined space activity. You should reflect the reality of possible confined space when there's emergency. How many of us have ever thought of that? Of possible confined space. That there's possibility of having confined space activity during an emergency procedure. Are we reflecting that reality in our drills? Are we putting that reality in our drills? Or we just carry out drills like everything is happening fine, just normal operation? What of confined space? What if there's a confined space during that activity and they need to also cater for the emergency that's happening somewhere else? The reality needs to reflect. The reality needs, please let us shut down our videos. The reality needs to reflect in our drilling. That's why we talk about bespoke training. Bespoke trainings are not generic training. It will reflect the reality of what is happening in the organization. So the confined space, for example, I was talking about the emergency. The emergency activity will now involve, okay, let us assume that there is a confined space or an activity that will make emergency procedure for a particular department to be slower. How do we cater it? Okay, we are planning that emergency, anytime there is an alarm, there's a drill, we want everybody to gather within 58 minutes. We want everybody to gather within within 58 seconds. Or whatever together within 54 seconds. You must reflect the reality of your confined space too, because everybody is important. That is why anytime there's a confined space activity, it needs to go through process of permit to work. Who is this person? Mr. Daniel, please. You need to reflect the reality of what is happening. If you want to have 54 seconds for your emergency, that 54 seconds, what if there's a drilling activity, there's a competitive activity that is happening, or any other high-risk activity that would impede or slow down the rate of response to your real fire that is happening, or any other kind of emergency. This thought came to my mind based on the comment, the last comment, when the person said a very valid point. And I love that point. Emergency shutdown, improper shutdown, and you're having a confined activity happening. So if they are able to create a channel of authorization through your permit to work system, so everybody's aware that there is a permit to work happening, it will reflect in your procedure and your operations, especially during emergency. Internal configuration that can trap or asphyxiate entrance. Due to the nature of how the confined space is, look at the picture here. If you are going on our drainage system in maybe in Lagos, for example, we have this kind of drainage system, or maybe let's say in all these our estates. For example, if you go to Eco Atlantic, if you walk through, you see this kind of system, this kind of what's it called? This kind of drainage system. When someone goes in to carry out a maintenance work or to do something, there's possibility for the person getting trapped or asphyxiated. So that also defines why you should call it a confined space. Any other hazard, serious safety or health hazard that could happen as a result of the confined space activity. Typical permit required spaces. Typical permit required spaces. Let's go. Please, our admins, help us to admit them in, please. Mr. Sonny Varugasi, help us to do that. Mr. Christopher Ian, please help us to do that always. Chemical storage tanks. Sorry, please. Someone have his video on, so I'm trying to shut down the person's video. Please, when you come to sessions like this, I don't think our videos is required. Switching on our video is required. We are here to learn together and not to watch our faces. After the session, we might have a group photo where we will open our cameras. Let us always, because whenever we are online and we are live on YouTube and you switch on your camera, YouTube automatically takes your face and it appears instead of the slide that we are presenting. So always switch off your camera whenever you are attending a training session, please. So, chemical storage tanks. And any tank that there is storage of chemical and people need to enter that kind of a storage tank, it becomes a permit required space. It becomes a permit required space. Waste or storage pits. Pits that are designed for waste or storage pits is a permit required space. Grain bins. Grains can create engulfment. It can trap someone. Grains, pebbles. It can lead to fatality. It can shock someone. Maybe while someone is working in a confined space, then in the protest line, they just suddenly pour grain on the person without them knowing that someone is working in the confined space. You know that normally before we are talking about confined space, you are talking about the nature of the work. But like I said earlier, Mr. Daniel Edet, why are you writing this? Please, Mr. Edet, we don't understand. It can create an engulfment. Imagine carrying out a maintenance on a pipeline. On a pipeline, and they are inside the pipeline. There's a pipeline that is as big that can contain someone. And unknowingly for them that there was a maintenance work going on there, they switch on the process line. That is why Log-out is very essential in most confined space activity because they are always attached to the process line. Waste or storage bins, grain bins, underground tunnels. Underground tunnels are also permit required activity. Someone is asking a question. Thank you. I think he has the response. Are water tanks assumed a hazardous space? If there's a limited space, we talk about emergency. Any space that someone is entering that will reduce the possibility of getting emergency response or responding to emergency response has become a confined space because of the limited entry that we explained on at the beginning. So someone is asking another question. Is saying, what is oxygen enrichment? Okay, there is a level of oxygen that should be present. There is a level of oxygen that should be present inside wherever a living entity is. Let me put that way. Whether animal or human, let's say human, we as human beings, we are entering any space. There is a limit. There is a required number of oxygen, and that should be around 22. I think around 19 to 22%. Yes, 19.5 to 23.5. So when someone is now having a limited when a particular space is now having lower amount of oxygen, that is maybe having lesser than 90%, then there's lower oxygen. But when there's excess oxygen, higher oxygen, we call it oxygen enrichment. Even if there is too much of oxygen, it's also not a friendly environment. Underground tunnels. These are also permit required spaces also. After this, I will not answer more questions until I finish the class so that we'll be able to coordinate the class very well. If you ask me questions, we would get distracted. We'll get distracted from the main slide. When we finish the slides, then we can ask questions. Let us jot down our questions, please. So let's go on. Potential confined space hazard. Like we've mentioned, let us now put them down in bullet points. Engulfment. We've already explained what engulfment is. When people can get engulfed. People can get engulfed. Not only fire that people get engulfed in. Not only in fire cases. So from fire, and you hear the word engulfment, it gives you an advice of what it means to get trapped. To get trapped inside the process while doing your maintenance or while inside the confined space. While inside the confined space activity. So confined space that contains, let's say, liquid, for example, or flowable solids. Solids that can flow, like grains, like sands that can flow, like dust that can flow. Imagine in a cement industry, you have your raw mill where they carry out where they store the first laterite, when they store after grinding laterite into particles, after grinding limestone into particles and other required chemicals, maybe gypsum. After grinding them, and they now have to mix them together and take them through the kiln. You know, after grinding them together, they will take it through the what we call the calciners. They are always like in 5 stages to heat up the limestone and other that's mixed together, to heat them up to a particular temperature. Then they now go through the kiln. That one that rotates, it goes through the kiln, and from there it now goes through the clinker. It becomes clinker. Then we have clinker silo. So that clinker silo, apart from the fact that that particular clinker that coming out is very, very hot, when they are doing maintenance in those kind of a place, and they mistakenly, maybe in the cement silo, after mixing the cement, and someone is carrying out maintenance, and they mistakenly pour those cement in that kind of silo, it's going to engulf the person inside. Even in the raw milk, the laterite that have been grinded, and there's the maintenance going on in that limited space, in that confined space, and they pour those things inside. What happens? It leads to engulfment. I hope we have an understanding of what engulfment is. It can even be in the food industry. Grains like maize, maybe corn, the grains going through a process line, and it entraps someone inside working. Maybe they were not aware that there is someone working there. That was why at the beginning of my class, I attached it to log out, tag out. So engulfment occurs when a person is pulled under the surface of the liquid of that flowable solid, and this can result to death. It can strangle the person. It can constrict. It can even crush the person. So engulfment is one of the potential hazards that is seen in confined space activity. Number two, oxygen deficiency. When there is lesser amount of oxygen, normally we say we should have between 19.5 to 23.5. When you have less than 19.5%, then you are now talking about oxygen deficiency, right? There's limited number of oxygen. There is limited number of oxygen. Then next one, oxygen enrichment. When you have higher number of oxygen, 23.5. Someone was asking a question the other time that what will happen when there is oxygen enrichment. Oxygen enrichment is more of a generic name for the hazard that is associated with gases or liquid that contains oxygen. That is when the space contains oxygen. Oxygen concentration in excess of 21%, excess of 23.5%. When there is excess of oxygen, it can increase the risk of fire or explosion. When there is excess amount of oxygen, it can lead to issues of fire. Because I hope we remember that one of the elements of fire is oxygen. Materials that may not burn normally in normal air, they may burn rigorously, seriously, when you are in an oxygen-enriched environment. Sparks that normally will be harmless during welding operation, for example, when there's oxygen enrichment, that spark can actually lead to fire because of the presence of what? Of oxygen enrichment. Flammable gases or vapors. Flammable gases or vapors is also one of the hazards of confined space. Combustible dusts. There are some dusts that are combustible. In fact, dust management is a session on its own. Most of secondary explosion occur as a result of the dust that has been dissipated to the atmosphere. Because when a primary explosion occurs, there's this particular accident that happened that I watched the documentary. If you want to learn more about fire accident explosion that are in animation form, go on YouTube. There's this what's the name? Chemical Safety Board, CSB. They have a lot of videos on YouTube. Go there, watch, learn. Instead of it's good to watch videos and watch comedies, all these comedy video. But watch the documentary too. Go on YouTube. Search for Chemical Safety Board. It's not my own YouTube channel. You know, I should also promote my own YouTube channel. But it's not my YouTube channel. It is where you can learn, because they have animated videos of accidents that has happened, documentaries, wonderful documentaries. You will learn from them. So in one of their videos, there was a particular operation that occurred then. What happened? There was a primary explosion. To cut the story short, there was a primary explosion that occurred. So that primary explosion is the first kind of fire that will occur, maybe primary explosion that will occur when there's a fire. Secondary is after it has reacted with other agents that are in the environment, then it leads to the major powerful secondary explosion. So the most time in that accident, the primary explosion, the dust, all those dust, if you look at a process line, for those that for some of us that generate dust in our process line, maybe our activities, you will see some pipeline, some areas, maybe some vessels or some tanks beside them, you see dust. For example, it happens very well in the cement industry. You see dust here and there. Even if you're home, when you do grinding operation, you see dust accumulated and you don't pack those dust, they can lead to secondary explosion and they can lead to fire. When you go to process safety, in process safety, we are talking about element fire triangle, the what we call fire tetrahedron. It's in dust fires, it's like 5 that can lead to fire. These are advanced causes. But to bring it down to our level, those dusts that are accumulating, if you don't pack them and regularly inspect and ensure that those dusts are not accumulating, when there's a fire explosion, it dissipates, it will scatter. Let me do what scatter. It will scatter the dust to the environment and create like a cloud. You see that cloud will create an explosion, a secondary explosion when there's a fire. So it happens most time in wood industry. Imagine wood dust. Wood normally is a good conductor of heat. It's combustible. Now imagine that you now have wood in dust form, wood in particulate form. What will happen? It will give rise to explosion. So combustible dust is also a very potential confined space hazard. If you are following, please kindly type yes in the comment section. Okay, someone is saying that it is called ATEX. ATEX means atmospheres explosible. Those abbreviation for ATEX directives, and in short form, in the full meaning, it is called atmospheres explosibles. It is generated by what's it called? European Union to regulate and design safety of products that are being used in explosive environment. There are some environments that are explosive environments. For example, environment like confined space, confined space environment is an explosive environment. Environment like the oil and gas environment, they have this ATS regulation that is being used. Yeah, I can see the feedback that we are following. Thank you so much. I love the energy. Toxic substances is also a criteria. Please, let's keep admitting people in. Toxic substances is also a criteria and an hazard that will present in the confined space. Toxic substance, the toxic substance can be as a result of what's it called? What that particular space is being used for, what that particular vessel, tank, reactor, drainage, waste bin, or whatever is being used for initially. Maybe it's being used to save some toxic substances, or as a result of the operation or the process of what is happening in the confined space, what you went there to do, it can also generate toxic substance. We also have what we call the IDLH atmospheres. IDLH means immediately dangerous to life or death. And this is being given by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, that is NIOSH. So it means that something that is likely to cause death or immediate or even permanent adverse health effects, or you can even prevent escape from such environments. So you can have IDLH atmospheres. It's also an hazard of confined space that you need to look out for. It's very, very important. It is very, 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 very important. Again, IDLH means immediately dangerous to life and what? And health or health. Immediately dangerous to. So you can have a kind of an atmosphere that can be immediately dangerous. That when someone, for example, when someone inhales it in, immediately it is having effect on the person. So these are the potential confined space hazard. Physical hazard, like we talk about, maybe we are trying to enter a confined space and the entry is sharp. So that sharp entry can lead to cuts, physical cuts. Or what the activity you are going there to do itself can lead to physical hazards. Falling, imagine someone is trying to enter a confined space of a depth of 5 meters. Or look, 5 meters is even too much. 5 meters, no, 5 meters is not much. It's 5 meters, 1, 3, 4, 5. Okay, it's a bit more. That's a depth of 5 meters. And the means of access is not good, and the person falls to the ground. That's a physical hazard. So it means that from the means of entry to the means of exit to the procedure for the activity to the possible emergency situation, every activity, everything that's happening in confined space needs complete focus. Now let's go to atmospheric testing. Atmospheric testing, why do we need to test? Where the people is working. So we are talking about atmospheric testing. We are not talking about you testing the external environment. We are talking about that condition, that atmosphere is where the person is working, the confined space. We need to test it. We need to test the oxygen content. The oxygen content. Is it oxygen enriched or oxygen deficient? Or is it between the normal level of oxygen that we require it to be? Is it, we need to check for combustibility or flammability. Every chemical, every substance that is flammable have their ignition point, flammability point. Imagine that a tank or a vessel or an underground vessel that they store petrol and they want to carry out a welding operation and they have drained out the petrol that is inside, the PMS. You need to, as you are introducing oxygen, to ensure that you take out all this fuel away and they are gaseous form. You know what actually burns is vapor. We don't want to go into that now. We don't want to go into that. What actually burns is vapor. So the gas, you might not have the liquid petrol inside the vessel, but the gas, the gas that is present, the vapor that is present is enough to cause explosion. So there is need for us to do what? To carry out tests in order to know the level of flammability for a space that what is present there is a flammable substance. You also need to check for toxicity. You need to check if there are toxic substances. Our test, what we use for testing, our testing apparatus, we check for oxygen, we check for CH4, some we also check for CO, and depending on what you want to check, that will depend on the kind of the apparatus that you're going to use. Entrants must be allowed to observe monitoring. Now, there are who you call the entrants. Those, we'll be talking about the entrants, the observers, and the lights. Entrants must be allowed to observe monitoring. Those that want to enter and that will be there for emergency purposes, everybody, it's not only the entrance. Everyone must observe what is being monitored, the oxygen level, the flammability, and if there is any toxic substance. What is the reason for space ventilation? Talking about ventilation, we need to maintain the level of oxygen above 9.5, 19.5, but not over 23.5. So the level of oxygen needs to be maintained. The level of oxygen needs to be what? To be maintained at all times. Maintain toxic gases and vapors at acceptable levels. You can't totally eliminate all the toxic gases or vapor. Even when you clean the tanker, when you use IPO or use everything to clean the tanker, even what they're using to clean self is also hazardous. Even when you do complete cleaning, you will still smell them. But what we are trying to do is to put them at acceptable levels. There's what we call threshold limits, threshold exposure limit. You have your lower exposure limit and your upper exposure limit or upper exposure level. Between them is what we are trying to maintain at all times. Now, the PPE that is being used for confined activity, we have a lot of PPEs. We have the body harness, because the person that you are taking inside, there must be means of communication. There's a lot of means of communication, but they also use the harness and the lifeline that is attached to the harness to do what? To communicate to the person, maybe by shaking the body harness. But apart from that, the harness is, in case of emergency, you will use it with the triple stand that I'll be showing us later. I don't know if I'll be showing us later, to rescue the person or to bring the person up in the case of emergency. Harness is one of the equipment that they use during confined space activity. Retrieval lines, what they will attach to the body harness, the retrieval line, the lifelines, the chemical protective clothing. In case you are going through a confined space that contains hazardous chemical that is being stored, you need to have the chemical protective clothing to prevent exposure to your skin. Welding apron and sleeves, respirators and gloves, respirators and gloves. These are your PPEs and your safety glasses at all times. If you are going there to do grinding, you might need to use your air muff. Definitely, that will limit the possibility of hearing or communicating by use of words. It means that there need to be other means of communication. You can see where ability to carry out a robust risk assessment and job hazard analysis is very, very, very important. You can see why it's very, very important. Because by the time, please let us mute. Because by the time the person is doing grinding, there will be noise. So you need to look at, okay, what other means, so in case the person is doing grinding and there's an emergency, what other means do we need to use to communicate to this person? Okay, Mr. Sunibarigade says that, I saw a comment that time. Breathing apparatus if in case of oxygen deficiency. Yes, in case of deficiency, you use breathing apparatus, and even if there is toxic, there is a highly toxic substance, you also use your breathing apparatus. So safety department responsibility. What, as a department in health and safety, what are your responsibilities? Number one, formulate and manage the confined space program. Confined space program is not only about the entry alone, the day of the entry. It's about everything that needs to be done in order to create not only awareness, but high-level competency and understanding of confined space activity. Confined space program can also involve training. So, understanding your confined space activity and putting it as part of your health and safety program is very essential, especially if you are doing more of maintenance work, or your job is about confined space. So it's a fun part of your program. Maintain a space inventory. Maintain a space inventory. Maintain a space inventory. It's part of your job. It's part of our responsibility to maintain, to know that, okay, who are those that are working in a confined space? How many people are going to do this confined space job? Maintain a list of authorized personnel. Maintain copies of space permits. Direct the confined space training program. Maintain rescue equipment. And coordinate contractor activity. So in case it is contractors that are coming to do the confined space work, it is also your responsibilities. As a supervisor that is going there to do the confined space work, what are your responsibilities? Conduct a pre-entry briefing. Before, even after your toolbox talk and everything, before they enter the toolbox talk, there must be briefing of what is expected of them. Ensure that personnel are evacuated when necessary. Even what they will use to evacuate them, everything must be available. Permit is complete and remove when work is finished. Ensure that all the equipment is returned to its proper location, for there must be, there can be another use, definitely. So even before the start of the job, you should ensure that everything that is required for the job is present at the location, and oversee all necessary confined space activity. Ensure that all the confined space activity are being overseen by you as supervisor. You don't go there and leave them for something else. You are there to ensure proper supervision and ensure that the procedure that has been communicated is being followed properly. As an attendant, someone who takes the attendance, you need to make sure that you are also there during the permit to work entry briefing. Know the hazard of the space of the space. Know the hazard of the space, the hazard that is present. Different permit, different confined activity what's it called? Have different hazards. Okay, Mr. Peter is talking about LMRA. Please, if you are giving us short code, let us say that for all those that don't know, last minute risk analysis, which is a short assessment that is performed immediately before the start of a work to identify and exclude all hazards, health issues, or environmental hazards that are available that are present in the workplace. Please, if you are giving us, we know we are all learning. So if you are giving us short forms, let us give us the full meaning so that people that don't know will also be last minute risk assessment. Type yes in the comment section. If you can hear me loud and clear, because it's saying my network is not stable here. If you can hear me loud and clear, please kindly type yes in the comment section. If you can hear me loud and clear, please kindly type yes in the comment section. So LMRA, thank you. LMRA means last minute briefing, last minute risk analysis. Know the hazard of the space, control access to the space. You need to also control the hazard of the space, because you are the one that you are the attendant. You will be there to ensure that you will also be there to communicate. You'll be there to ensure that those that are supposed to enter are those ones that are entering, and to continuously communicate with them. Maintain communication at all times, and not to enter the space for rescue. These are some of the mistakes that some people do, especially if they are very emotional. You don't go inside the confined space to rescue. You are not a rescuer. You should have your rescue team activity. Rescue team, you should know the person. They have been trained on how to rescue. This is just introduction to the course. So, if in the case you want to know about rescue, confined space rescue plan, we'll talk about that later. So, part of those things, again, you are not required to enter that space. And in case there is an emergency, it is your duty to summon the emergency, to call the attention of those that are supposed to come to carry the emergency. for rescue and from any other kind of emergency that is present. Assist rescue effort from outside the space. So if those that are coming to do the rescue, you don't follow them inside, or you don't follow them to do the rescue. You should just support and assist them while they carry out the rescue. Remain at the site while entrants are inside. It is your duty to remain there. You must always remain there. Order a space evacuation when condition warrants such an action. If you observe that something is happening outside, or you are seeing something that they are not seeing, you can also order a space evacuation when there is a condition that requires such action to take place. Maintain an accurate count of the number of entrants. Yes, it's also your duty to make sure that you do your pre-entry inventory. Entrants, those that are entering, it's your duty to make sure you attend the pre-entry briefing, which we call last-minute risk analysis. Know the hazards in the space. Use your PPE and the equipment properly. You need what will make you to exit the space. When you've already agreed on the means of communication, that is how you want to communicate, and you receive the information that you should move out from the confined space, or you should move out from that space, or you should get out, you need to get out when an alarm is being activated. Maybe a fire alarm, and you hear the fire alarm, it's your duty to activate it. Don't say we are in the confined space, it does not concern us. It concerns you. You need to respond to the alarm that has been activated. If communication is lost, your channel of communication to the what's it called? To the entrant, to the attendant. If your communication is lost to the attendant, it is your duty to ensure that you leave. You exit the space immediately. You have lost communication because you might not know what is happening. Unknown exposures are encountered. When there are unknown exposures that have been encountered, it's your duty to do what? To make sure you exit immediately. When you are being ordered to do so, it's your duty to what? To exit. Authorized person responsibility. Familiarize themselves with characteristics of spaces. What is available in the space? They need to familiarize themselves with the characteristics of the spaces. Verify that all hazards and source of energy has been controlled in the space. All hazards and the source of energy has been controlled in the space. Remember that I told you about logout, tagout, tryout, lototo. It's very important that they verify that every hazard or any form of energy that can be introduced to that confined space has been what? Has been either eliminated or completely engineered and controlled to ensure that they do not introduce such into the process line while the confined space activity is taking place. Ensure that confined space permit is posted. The confined space permit is very important because of those that want to come in, you know what is happening and what is being done, and those that are inside. Revoke any permit for non-compliance with permit requirements. So when you observe, because you are the authorized person that is doing the final signature, when you observe that there is no compliance with the permit requirement, then you can revoke the permit. Rescuer, those that want to rescue should also be informed about the hazard, and they should be aware of the job. The rescuers will be aware that there's a confined space happening in so location. They must also have a copy of what is what is happening. Maybe what would I call it? In high standard companies, I believe that they should have an e-permit system that every department will be communicated to on matters that concerns them. So when it comes to emergency or confined space, the department of the rescue department, must be aware of the activity, and part of what they should know is the hazard that is happening in that particular space. Be certified in emergency first aid. Imagine that you have a kind of a system, a kind of e-communication system, like a e-permit to work system, when even if there's an emergency, the attendant can just click on maybe they have an app. That's I said that is safety. There are so many areas that people can actually benefit from. You can just create an e-app for that particular company that even if there's an emergency, they don't even need to. You just need to press a particular button or a particular space in on the application, and it will alert the department together with the other physical means of communication. I'm not saying they should erase that, but it will alert them faster. And when they click on that particular space, the person that responded, they will see the location immediately on the phone. They will have seen the hazards that are there. They will have known who are those that are working there. Then immediately, if the company have maybe the health records of those people, they can access the health record because the company has already put it in their data. Okay, Mr. So is also in this confined space. Okay, he has this so condition. Immediately, it makes communication easier. And that's I said is health and safety. People can there are areas of opportunity and exploration for every field. So be certified in emergency first aid and CPR. They should also be good in carrying out first aid and CPR, understand appropriate entry procedures, how to enter a confined space, and know how to use rescue equipment, know how to use the various forms of rescue equipment at all time. At all time. Practice confined space rescue at least annually. Annually, they should practice confined space entry. Practice confined space entry at all time. They must be able to know how to respond to emergencies. It's very, very important. They should do their drills at all time, not wait until there's an actual emergency. It's just like our normal fire emergency drill. Confined space entry too requires our rescue team, and they also need to practice confined space rescue training at least annually. And that takes us to the end of today's section. Like we said, this is an introduction. In fact, even this introduction has covered has covered a very crucial part of this training. So if you have any question, please, we can ask our question. We hope we've learned enough. We hope we've added value. Please let us remain muted. Mr. Bankole Anu, please remain muted. We hope we've added value. And for us at Scholar Safety Consults, we have a lot of trainings for us. In fact, we have some trainings now that we've pre-recorded already, that are already available on pre-recorded, like this confined space training and confined space rescue plan. This is an introduction. We have it recorded for us at a very, very irritating price, very, very small price. We have other trainings that are also available on pre-recorded, like accident investigation and risk management techniques. They are available on pre-recorded. We have DHA also on recorded. We have HSC data analysis and Excel HSC data presentation also on recorded. COSH, hazardous material also on recorded. 2 HSC gap analysis also on recorded. Basic health and safety work in the workplace also on recorded. Promoting safety culture also on recorded. We also have electrical safety training also on recorded. Other identification and risk assessment also on recorded. Confined space entry also on recorded. Work attire training also on recorded. And we also deliver these trainings to various organizations. So if you want us to come and train your organization, root cause analysis course also available for us, and every other specialized bespoke technical safety courses. We also deliver management trainings on management of mental well-being, active listening training course, effective communication, management of management of hostility and violence in the workplace, inclusive leadership and management, emotional intelligence, and conflict management and resolution. So we also have all this training available for us. Please let us ensure to engage us with your organization. If you want this pre-recorded version to our trainings, we have them on pre-recorded, and if you want us to train you, we also have our timetable also. You can make a request for us. You can make a request. You can chat me up. You can chat us up on this number. 4549. You can communicate with us on that number on WhatsApp. If you have any question, please. Also, examples for non-permit to work required. Permit to work is a example of non-required permit to work spaces. I mean confined spaces. Confined space is a high-risk job, and we advise that it should be, no matter how small the confined space is, it should be a permit to work required space. All right, please let us. Okay, I think I'm sharing my details in the waiting room. 07045497332. Our safety officers meant to be at the confined space from start to finish, or the supervisor. You can have confined space supervisor and the attendants. You know, we say we have the attendants, we have the entrance, we have the authorized person, we have the supervisor. The attendants must be there at all times. If your safety officer is the one that should be there, then you should be in that space. It should be there. Because someone must be there to monitor them. Someone must be there to monitor and ensure that they are following the procedure. So it's supposed to be there. Is there any regulation, any national regulation concerning confined space entry? In Nigeria, I don't think so, unless if you have someone who has an idea about that. Is it safer to install steam boiler channel and gas pipeline together? Steam boiler channel. Is this question related to this discussion? Steam boiler channel and gas pipeline together. I don't know if anyone can answer that question. I don't think if it's related to this. I've responded to your second question. Please, if you want to ask any question, you can unmute.
The question the man asked actually is not related to it. What he's trying to say is we have boiler and we have a pipeline for the gas separate. Either you use the fired boiler or you use the gas boiler. You see, maybe he doesn't understand. They are two separate things. One must be closed, the other one will be in operation. Two cannot run together.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, can you share more light on it? Can you share more light on that? On the gas, I know of boiler. Just share more light on it for us to learn more. Okay.
Like in a plywood industry, we have plywood manufacturing industry. Okay. We have wood-fired boiler, and we have gas-fired boiler. The same. Okay. So you can either use one and leave the other one, but you cannot use the two together. That is one. Two, the lines only come up at a point. That point, the valve must be shut for the wood-fired boiler. When the fire boiler is not in operation, then the gas will be used. It just vice versa like that. You cannot use the two together. It is at the point of transferring heat to various areas where the heat will be used. Because this kind of boiler, it is fluid tube. It's put inside the tube, and the fluid is called heat transferred fluid. This heat transfer fluid goes round pipes to areas where heat is applied. So that is what he's trying to talk about. But you cannot use the two at the same time. The point where the fluid will move from the firewood fired boiler must be short. It's going to be a gateway. The gas cannot come in and do its own work. But if you are going to use the gas, the firewood fired one must be short, and the other side also must be short when you want to use the other side. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir, for that.
Oh, good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
It is awesome, Mr. Waliu. My second question, you mentioned of rescue in confined space. So I was asking if you can also was in getting maybe examples of those equipment that it is used in a confined space for rescuing if there is emergency inside confined space. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think that's why I said this is in introduction. This is an introduction to confined space. When you're talking about confined space, the rescue, you have your support stand, you have your apparatus. Yes.
Can I just say something on that?
Please let us stay muted, please. We have so many underground noises. Underground noise, sorry.
Can I just say something on the last question?
Is anyone there?
Yes, can I just say something on the last question that was asked?
Please, you can go ahead, please.
Yes, this is Christian. Last time I was asking if about the rescue equipment. Yes, you have, alongside having a tripod stand that will be manned by an operator, down inside the confined space, you need to have what we call the stretcher. You also need to have emergency life saving apparatus, ELSA, or emergency breathing apparatus, which is the self-contained breathing apparatus, which is the LCBA. And there must be a means of communication, probably maybe like considering maybe the depth of the confined space, such that if we shout, nobody can hear you. So you have radios, you have communication between the guys inside the space and people outside manning the hole and taking record. There will also be a time frame and all of that. So those equipment are handing, and the winch of that tripod is, must be certified and ensure that it is working, must be tested every day to ensure efficiency. Because in confined space, time is of the essence when there's an emergency, so you don't need to give room to any error or delay. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir. So in summary, when you have the equipment for rescue in confined space, there are many. You have your, like you said, the tripod stand is very important. The full body harness is very important. The tripod stand that you are using is just there to serve as a support to use the winch, your hoist, and retractable device in order to lift the person out from the confined space. So you have your PD and rescue system too. And even if there's need, like you said, a stretcher, the stretcher should be, if you are using a stretcher, maybe the person has collapsed or something, definitely there should be a vehicle that would transport the person back to maybe to the hospital or wherever they need to take the person to. So these are the equipment. You need to have climbing apparatus, you need to have your rope, you need to have your self-containing breathing apparatus, your respirators. So this forms part of the equipment for rescue. All right, thank you for what you are sharing on the slide, on the screen. Okay, for the question that was asked, what is your view about gold mine, Ghana gold mine issue as it relates to this subject? News report added that soldiers are waiting to arrest people who come out from a gold mine about 1,500 meters beneath the surface. Is it meters or feet? 1,500 meters beneath the surface. People are going that far, that depth. Okay. There's no view now. My view is the view is the safety standpoint. Is the safety standpoint is not a safe operation, and I think they are doing it illegally. So, what kind of view will I have from the area of safety that we all know? What is hydrogen sulfide? Hydrogen sulfide is a chemical. Is one of the is a dangerous chemical too. I think it's that is H2S. H2S, that's hydrogen sulfide. Do we have degree of classification? Yes, some have degree of classification, while some does not have. You know, so they classify them as a low risk. There are some that are low risk. There are some that are medium risk, high risk, and we have a UK classification, NC1, NC2, NC3. All those ones are just different people have their different. There's no harmonized means of classification. There's no harmonized means of classification, and what determines the level, just like your risk assessment, is the level of hazard that is there. Maybe the particular confined space only have maybe oxygen. Maybe they just dig a ground or a new vessel. There's nothing inside. Just that people can be. Just that there will be limited oxygen. You get just one of the hazards is present, and maybe difficulty during emergency. So that can be low risk, but it's still high risk when it comes to safety. But based on confined space level, you can put it at low risk. But we don't want to jeopardize, or we don't want to use that as a benchmark to carry out our activity. Maybe high risk will now be okay. Maybe a vessel that is in a reactor that is connected to a process line that is underused, that still contains maybe some level of chemicals, or they evacuated the chemicals, but there's possibility for permeability, there's possibility for toxicity, and there's possibility for the low-gas target to fail, and it makes it difficult for operation, and there's limited oxygen. So the level of hazard that is involved will now determine maybe low risk or high risk. So all those ones are just by the side. The most important thing is to know, is to be able to carry out your risk assessment. Okay, if you say this low risk or high risk or medium risk, if you are doing your safety and you are trying to carry out your risk assessment, and you observe that there is this oxygen, there is limited oxygen, there is this, does it really matter if it's under high risk or low risk? What matters is for you to put adequate controls in place to ensure that all these things do not pose danger to the person and to the environment at large. So there are a lot of classifications that various bodies can come up with. Like I just said now, most important thing for us is to be able to create an operation in confined space that do not pose danger or harm to those that are involved in the activity. Please, do you have any other question, please? What is the threshold limit for respirator when used frequently? Threshold limit for respirator, do you mean that how long a respirator should be used? Is that what you mean? Is that what you mean? Who was the person that asked the question?
I think that is what the person meant. That is correct. How long should it be used?
Okay, thank you, sir. So when it comes to issue of respirator, before you determine how long you use it, even if it's being used frequently, what is it being exposed to? As a thumb of rule, as a rule of thumb, sorry. As soon as you detect that the containment, that is the cartridge filter, it comes with the filter. As soon as you observe that the filter is already smelling, has started smelling, that you can now start smelling maybe the particular chemical where you use that respirator. As soon as you start smelling them, then you change it. So, and most of them comes with expiry date, and it's been stamped on the body by the manufacturer. So once the filter is open, normally it's compulsory that you change them within 6 months, even if you don't use them. So the most important thing is the cartridge that is present in the respirator. So it's a cartridge that you change based on what you perceive. It's not a standard rule that it must be, but if you don't use at all, then 6 months. But if you are using it frequently, then once you observe that it starts smelling, that this thing starts smelling the petrol where you are using it, then you change it. As simple as that.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you very much. Thank you for some of us that are still present here. Okay, I think we have people raising up their hand. Please kindly unmute if you are raising up your hand.
Good evening, sir.
Okay.
And good
Good evening,
evening,
sir.
fellow professionals. Thank you very much for the wonderful session. I got a bit worried when I actually saw the news story. So I had to bring it up within this forum. I also know that in a setting here in Nigeria, we have a lot of activities going on around, you mentioned oil tankers and the rest of the things. So we find a lot of people going into underground tanks and things like that with almost no safety equipment or any or adequate plans. And you wonder, is it possible that maybe lack of regulations or lack of clarity as to carrying out these activities in this part of the world is complicating or encouraging these things? Because ordinarily, I would have wondered, why won't the maybe law enforcement agents look for a way of allowing these people to come out before you think of arresting them? Now the people are in there and have refused to come out because of the threats of the arrest. And I saw something on NMDPRA website. When I asked you and you said no, I quickly had to check to be sure. And I think I saw something concerning which I've just shared. So maybe it can be a guide for us. I think possibly the PIA and other things coming up maybe has repositioned NMDPRA or is yes, possibly to look at this aspect and maybe be more strict concerning them. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. Concerning the NMDPRA, I think that is a I think middle stream, right?
Yes, sir, midstream. Midstream.
Yeah. So these are guidelines. You know, we have guidelines, we have standards, and we have regulations. Guidelines are more like best practice on how they should operate. And I really appreciate this. I will look into it. And it has to do with DPR operations. Yes, DPR, in fact, oil and gas generally, they don't joke with anything that has to do with safety. So I think the oil and gas industry generally is one of the industries that upholds safety practices. So the guidelines and requirements for work at heights and in confined spaces in the Nigerian oil and gas industry issued by DPR. Okay, I think I will go through this. I'll go through this later. But I want to ask a question. Is this guideline, is it compulsory for vendors who want to get their permit to work, maybe NDPRA permit? Is it compulsory that they follow their guidelines, or they can follow their own best practice, since it's not a regulation that they must abide with? I want to be clear with that.
Okay, sir, let me try to attempt the question or try to attempt in answering this. I know from a little bit of my knowledge of a little bit experience that DPR actually regulators, and as regulators, they're actually empowered to give guidelines and even sanction in line with what they've stated, even though it may not be a national law per se. But then if they tell this filling station that you are supposed to operate like this, like that, or like this, and you breach it, then they are forced, or they can go on to seal the filling station. Just like, so the implication is that if they have contractors working on sites and they discover that you are not following their guideline, considering the fact that they are regulators within this space, I think they have the right to sanction you or stop the activity.
Okay, because based on these are one of the salient areas that we used to go back and forth about. But I think based on the little that I know, when it comes to guidelines, most times they are informational, administrative instructions, best practice, like I said, and sometimes they may not be mandatory. I don't know. I would personally do much more research about that. Let me write it down. So
yes, I totally agree with you, sir. And well, I also would want to draw your attention to the activities of DPR or NMDPR receiving filling stations and things like that. You see it on news. This is actually based on their guidelines, not based on any bill passed by the National Assembly.
okay. I get it very well, sir. Thank
Hello,
you so
sir.
much. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, because I noticed, that's why I quickly want to come in. And regards to my Oga that just spoke about the NNDPRA now, as he said, NNDPRA, they are regulatory agency, and they are being empowered by the PIA that every organization, whether in oil industry, under the new approved PIA, should follow their rule and regulation based on international standard. Apart from being sealing up a filling station or other area, they have the right to enter any oil farm at any point in time. If they met a contractor working in that particular facility that outside the guideline being given by the regulator to that particular organization, they are bound to sanction the organization, because anything that the contractor does, they believe is in the knowledge of the entire organization. So
Sure,
they are bound to sanction the organization. They are not even have time with the particular company that is working under that boss. Their particular act is strictly on oil industry farms. Even if you want to get any document, you want to be importing this and that, you have to follow their particular regulation based on the standard and leaded to international standard. So it's not mainly because if you go to their site now, those are their new enacting laws that anybody that wants to operate in that area, whether somebody is working under you as a subcontractor, they have to follow that guide. If not, that company will be sanctioned. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much for the feedback. This is very enlightening. Thank you so much. Individually, I would prepare us to actually download this material and study more and read more about it. Please, can you all see the flyer I'm sharing with us?
Yes.
So these are pre-recorded trainings. You can see they are at ridiculous prices. We have they are pre-recorded means that we will give you the link to the video. We will give you the materials that you need for the video and any other information, and you do an assessment. And after the training, and after the training and assessment, we issue our company certificate of training for you. So we have 10 that are pre-recorded already. I think confined space entry training, worker types training, job hazard analysis. You can see this. I think this is 5,000. Electrical safety training. Seriously, I thought I put 10,000. Hey, this electrical safety is very, very wide. So 5,000 electrical safety training, confined space training, 5,000, worker tight training, 5,000, DHA2, 5,000, risk assessment training course, 5,000. We have a training on the psychological safety and mental well-being for 2 days training. That is 50,000 naira. For this is a management training. For those that have been interested, you can chat me up. I already dropped our number. We used to deliver this training for individuals and for organizations too. So we're having this training in June 24th and July 1st. So psychological safety and management of mental well-being in the workplace. Please kindly, if you're interested, you can chat me up privately. We have this on the QHSE job gap analysis also. That is 5,000 naira. Safety data analysis and Excel HSE dashboard training course. That is 10,000 naira. Asset investigation and risk management training. That's also 10,000 naira. Control of substances hazardous to health. That is also 10,000 naira. All these have been brought down to the minimum price. And I'm very sure that you will learn enough. You will learn more than enough. You can register for 2 or 3. Just let us discuss about it. We have basic of health and safety in the workplace. That is also 5,000 naira. So for us, if you are interested, please kindly chat us up privately and let us talk about this. Yes, but here's our WhatsApp number again. Yeah, from Uganda, you can pay in dollars. We will give our account details. The amount in dollars is already posted there for those that are not in Nigeria. So you can chat me up, you can chat us up on this number. You can chat us on this number. I hope you can all see the number. You can chat us on this number. Or if you click this link, I think if you click this link, it will take you, I think it's, sorry, /safety. So that is our number. You can chat us through the number. Thank you all. I really appreciate you for being a part of this. We hope to have you. You can see the link. The link is working also. You can chat up through the link, through the second link that I sent. Thank you all very much. We hope to see you again next week on another wonderful enlightenment moment. Thank you and God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for the lecture. We really enjoyed it, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.